Hey, welcome to the first episode of the much anticipated building system tutorial series, where we'll build a scalable, modular, and hopefully complete building system that you can reuse in all of your projects that require building. We'll have features such as a preview mesh with different materials, rotation offset, location offset. We'll have snapping, enabling and disabling snapping, as well as enabling and disabling a grid. We'll have a deconstruction mode where you can destroy buildings, and we'll be able to check for costs or anything that is required on the character to actually build that specific buildable. We'll also have three different types of meshes: stone, wood, and metal. And we'll also at the end do a, foundation or building integrity system where things will fall if they're not built properly. Our goal is something similar to Valheim, and this first episode will set up the data table, the gameplay tags, and the blueprints. It'll be kind of a boring episode, but from there, we'll hit the ground running. And I have an overview that I've made that I'm going to jump into now. So as you can see, we have our needs right here that I've just kind of jotted down what we want the system to do basically. And I won't go over them all, but you can see if you read them out, it is definitely, nothing. I wouldn't say it's something super difficult or impossible to imagine, but it has some pretty advanced features. And especially we're going to do a destruction mode to where we can, break things down. And this integrity system that we're going to do last is going to be pretty advanced where things will fall apart if they're not built correctly. And we'll actually, I didn't put this on here, but we'll actually be trying to, like, instead of using actors when we place them, eventually we'll switch those all to instant static meshes to save on processing. And I've kind of made an outline right here. You can see the things we'll use and just some functions and variables that we'll go over. And you should always try to do this for your projects, is to just jot down some general ideas of what you'll use. And basically I've just kind of jotted down what the blueprints will look like, as well as some of the data. And of course we'll be utilizing a data table, and then some of the main functions and variables that we'll use. It's good to make things like this just to keep your concepts in line. And you should be able to find the link for this in the description of the video. And we're going to be using two what should be free asset packs, basically, which is going to be this right here, this Easy Building System V10, which has been on the marketplace forever. And we're not going to be using any of the functionality. We're just going to use some of these. We're going to use their models, basically. And we're going to take advantage of all them being, symmetrical and, kind of meant to be placed together. And just in case this is not available on the marketplace anymore, I'm going to have a link for this in the description. And we'll also be using this right here, this survival kit, which is actually a 3D asset pack from Kenny.nl, which is a popular, free asset website. But each 3D asset pack comes with some preview PNGs and JPEGs that we can use as icons for our UI. And with that said, let's jump into the engine. And you can find both of these things and a link for this presentation in the description of the video. And if you want the project files, be sure to join my Patreon. And if you have any trouble, check out the Discord. It'll all be linked in the description. So I have basically a third-person template from an Unreal Engine 5.6 open. I just opened it up. There's nothing added to it or anything like that. And I've just named it Building System 01. So it's our first episode. And let's go ahead and in our content folder, we can create our folder, which I'm just going to call root, or we can actually just call core. Kind of like that a little better. And then let's find my survival kit from Kenny. And then right here we have previews, and these are all the PNG preview files that they include. And I'm just going to drag those in. Bam, there we go. And they're populating right there. Now, for the building system, you'll need to most likely create a project that we can migrate this stuff over. All right, and that finally opened, and you should be looking at something like this after you download it and open up the project. If we go into the content browser, we can find the main folder, and we're looking at meshes, props maybe, yeah, and then so in props we have dummy, stylize. Okay, that's not actually it. Environment. Nope. Structures. There we go. Polygonal. which is, I guess is that, and stylized, which is these right here. And let's just see which one. Yeah, I guess I'm going to use the stylized one. So I'm just going to click on the stylized folder, which should give us a metal, stone, and wood version of these props. And so we can actually take the prop folder and the stylized folder. So I'm just going to control click. So click stylized, control click on props, right click and migrate. And then it'll get everything it needs basically. And you want to find your project folder and then go into it, go into content, and then drop it in there and let it migrate. And then inside of our main project, we should have a folder now for easy building system. And we have all the stuff we need for, these things. Just for the building system, just the mesh part of it. And just to avoid having to find this folder constantly, I'm going to just get this stylized folder and I'm going to bring it and drop it onto meshes. And I'm just going to copy it here simply just to like not mess up the originals, just in case, something kind of goes wrong, I guess. And that way we always have the originals here, but then we have like our versions of them as well. I'm going to also set the color of this folder just to stick out to my eye. And I'm actually going to add it to favorites too. Add to favorites, and that way it'll always just be right here, which is our, core folder. So I'm just going to save all to make sure our copy saved. Awesome. And now let's start kind of thinking about, wait, what? That didn't go. Yeah. Okay. So now we can start thinking about our data. So first thing we should probably do is go up to gameplay tags, go to manage, and we should start kind of creating some tags for our stuff. And basically, I'm just going to call anything that will be placed a buildable, basically. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't have to be a buildable. Like, for instance, it could be like a crafting station or something. But for our just basic buildables that have no other functionality, really, we're just going to call it a buildable. And so first thing we're going to do is do foundation wood. Because remember, we have 3 different sets. We have wood, metal, and stone. So let's do foundation. Then I'm going to say wall, and we'll say standard. And then, and then wood. Because we're going to have a few different types of walls. So wood, metal, and stone. And under wall, we can say door. So it's like a door, a doored wall, I guess you could say. Then we could say wood, metal, stone. And also we'll need a window. So a windowed wall. You could say wood, metal, stone. Cool. And then we can create another buildable for door, which will do the same thing. Wood, metal, stone. And same thing for window. Wood, metal, and stone. Cool. And also, so we'll have a tag that will represent each buildable. And we'll also want to create, let's go into project settings again. We'll want to create a collision channel that basically represents, each kind of thing. So we can say foundation and make sure you set the default response to ignore. So we'll have foundation. We will have wall. We will have window, or let's do door just to keep the same order. And we will have window. And this isn't going to be all we add with the building system, but these are going to be the 4 primary things that we start with. We'll add all the other models in the pack soon, but let's just start with those 4 to get things rolling. So we have our tags and we have our collision system, or our collision traces basically. So now let's create a folder and call it data. And in the data folder, we can create a subfolder called structs. And in here, we can create one for s_buildable data. Cool. And the first thing we'll want, if we open that up, is a gameplay tag. And the second thing we'll want is a mesh. And the way they do it in this easy building pack with the meshes is kind of going to dictate how we do our data and stuff. Because if we go into our meshes folder and our stylize, you can see that all these are different meshes. If it was just a different material that defined, if they were wood, metal, or stone, then we would do the setup a little different. But because they are all different meshes, we're just going to create a whole blueprint for each type of thing, I guess you could say. And especially because you may want to have, you may want to build in a system where it's stronger. For instance, the stone structure may be harder to break, for instance. So let's create another variable in here. We have our static mesh. Let's create a trace channel, which I believe is, trace type query. I'm going to go to it just to make sure. Yeah, it is. So that's what we want. And we can go into our structures folder and create another structure, which we're going to call slot, which is kind of just a universal term for like an inventory slot. If you're following our, let's call it slot data actually. If you're following our inventory and interaction system, you'll be familiar with this structure, which is basically just going to be a tag to represent an item and a quantity. And so in our buildable data, we'll say cost, and we want to do slot, and we'll do an array of that. And so if we go to our default values right here, we can set how many of each item it will cost to, like spawn this structure. Cool. So we have tag, mesh, trace channel, and cost. We can create another structure and let's call it, attribute data, which is going to be a gameplay tag and a value. And we can go into our gameplay tags, go to manage, and let's just create some attributes real quick. So attribute health. There we go. That's all we'll need for this. And that's going to be just in case you want to assign attributes to your buildables, which you may not, but just in case. So it's an array of attribute data, which we can and actually we could have just made a map, and we probably should have. We probably should. So let's just map a gameplay tag to a float value. And that way we can't have duplicates of the entries. Let's just do that instead, and we will delete our attribute data. Cool. And let's go into our plugins folder. And there is a big update to this Struct Utilities plugin in Unreal Engine, either 5.5 or 5.6, because it's definitely not in 5.4. And this is going to allow us to do something very cool that we'll start implementing in most of our tutorial series. If we enable this and hit yes, let's just restart it real quick. Cool, that was pretty fast. And now let's go into our buildable data. And what we'll want to do is add a variable, and we want to call it an instance structure. And this will become more clear when we get into the data table, what this is. So we're just going to leave it as that, custom data. Let's go into our project settings and gameplay tags real quick. And let's just make some events. So we'll say event, open door, event dot open window. Cool, that'll do for now. And that should be it, I think, for now. There's nothing else. Oh, we need a blueprint class, sorry. So let's go into our folder, create a blueprint. And actually, it's going to be called blueprints. And we will create a blueprint class of type actor that will be BP underscore buildable, base. Now, we're also going to let's create a folder within our blueprints folder called buildables and drag that in there. And then let's right click and go into blueprint and then create an interface, which will be called BP underscore buildable. If we create a new folder for interfaces, keep that organized. Cool. Now, basically, to be a buildable, something can inherit from this base class, or it could be something totally different that doesn't inherit from this base class, but implements this interface. So for instance, you could have crafting stations and stuff. They won't probably inherit from this buildable class, but if they inherit from this, if they implement this interface, then they'll be treated as a blueprint basically. So when we do a class, then we don't need to specify that it's any type of actor class. We can just do a regular actor class. And let's drag that up to class right there. And that's the class that's going to be spawned when you play something basically. And while we're in here, let's just go ahead and create our buildables. So BP buildable foundation. Let's create it as a base. So foundations. Let's drag those in there. And this, what was this? Oops. So this should be the child of no, this is buildable. Oops, I messed something up there. I'm going to delete these because I'm not sure what happened. I'm going to go to buildables, go to this buildable class and just create a BP buildable foundation base. Create another child for BP underscore buildable foundation wood. Duplicate that. Stone, duplicate that. Metal. And then I'm going to drag those into foundation. I'm going to create another one for BP buildable wall. Oops, going to rename that to base again. Create another child, call it BP wall, and then BP buildable wall wood, metal, and stone. Create a folder for walls. Drag those in. Create another child class off the buildable base and call it buildable window wall base. Create a child off of that, and same thing. We want wood, metal, stone. Create one for a folder for window walls. Drag all those in there. Create a child of the buildable base, say door wall. And maybe, yeah, let's just leave it as door. How do we name that? Window wall. Yeah, okay, cool. So door wall. Oops, we didn't put our base, just to be clear. Create a child class. Buildable door wall wood. Duplicate that. Hopefully this makes sense. Metal. Duplicate that, and stone. So, oops. So I'm just kind of working out all our blueprints. So door walls. Cool. Door walls. There we go. So we have a base class, then we have windows, walls, and these are all the children that will, you could treat differently, but we will mostly treat the same in this one. But we're creating different blueprints just to allow for different health and stuff like that. And different customization. And just because in each different instance of each different thing, you may need to keep track of certain things. That's why we're doing it like that. In some scenarios, you would maybe want to just define the meshes and switch them out. But in this scenario, we're going to want to treat them differently with different blueprints. And I don't think that's a huge deal as far as doing it like that, just to maintain that just so we can maintain certain things over different instances of the blueprints, if that makes sense. So we can crack open our buildable base, and while we're at it, just add a static mesh for buildable mesh. And we can just simply add a gameplay tag variable or tag and make it instance editable. And we want to expose it on spawn as well. And we probably should, where is it? Class settings. I'm trying to remember, where is it? Yeah, right here in class settings. For all our base classes, we should go in and just generate abstract class so it can't be dragged into the world. I'm going to do that real quick. So in our window wall base, class settings, advanced, generate abstract class. And our walls, now this is just our base classes. Go to advanced, generate abstract class. And this just makes it so we can't drag in base classes to the world because they're not meant to be in the world. Generate abstract class, door walls, go to our base class, class settings, and generate abstract class. Cool. And so let's go. I think that's about all we can do for now. We have our data. In our data folder, let's create another folder for tables. And we will say miscellaneous data table. We will create a data table based off of our buildable data. And we'll call it DT underscore buildable definitions. Cool. We'll add a bunch of rows. And these are all the things that will basically represent a buildable. And so first thing, let's just fill out our tags. So we're going to just fill out all this data together. So let's go foundation. I'm going to do wood first. And then we just want to search for stylized foundation wood. And we have duplicates, meshes, metal, wood. Just going to, let's see if we can't, is there anything we can do to bulk rename these? Let's see. Yes, batch rename. There we go. So basically we want to add the prefix my underscore. Apply. Same thing for stone. We can grab them. It's not letting me select multiple ones. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, cool. So for stone, we can do the same thing. Batch rename, add prefix my underscore, apply. And in metal, select them all. Right click, batch rename, add prefix my underscore. Cool. I'm going to save all just so that saves. And here we have our foundation wood, and we can go stylize or my stylized foundation, my foundation, maybe. Yeah, here we go. Metal. Okay, it looks like we have a different type of foundation that I didn't realize, but here we go. That's the mesh. And then we have foundation wood. And what we're going to do is copy this tag and put it for the row. And that way we can just search by the row and there's no possibility of typo, but we'll still be able to just use the tag basically. We'll set the trace channel to foundation. We'll leave everything else blank. But this is basically the setup for what we're going to do for every single item. And this is the custom data instance structure that we set up in the buildable data, which is this right here, this custom data instance structure. And basically what this makes it so is, say, down the line you have different buildables like a crafting station, for instance, and they need to be passed in a specific set of information that is different to all the other buildables. You can define that right here. And let's just grab one of our structures, so slot data, and then you can actually set what it is right here. Now, this is the change that really made a huge difference in the recent versions of Unreal Engine. Because it didn't used to be when you set it that you could, when you did that you can actually set the default values in tables and details panels, but you can't now. So let's just go down the list. Buildable, foundation, metal. I'm going to copy that, paste it. And so my foundation metal, boom. I'm going to get our metal foundation, and that's it. Then we can get, I'm going to search foundation. We have stone, oops, my foundation stone. Let's see, stone. Stylized stone foundation. Let's try that. Okay, gotcha. So it's the thing first. It's the, first. There we go. And that's that. Let's not forget to copy the gameplay tag to the row. And that's our foundations. So now we can go to wall, standard, wood. We have my wall wood, wood wall. Oops, wall wood. Boom. Put it to wall. There we go. And then let's not forget to do this. And then we can go to our next one. Wall metal. Wall standard metal. Where was that? Right there. I'm going to copy the row. Boom. And you just need to do this for every single one. So my wood wall. Here we go. Wall wood. Wall. There we go. And so let's do stone. Stone. And what was it? My stone wall. Wall stone. Oops. Let's just type wall. Buildable wall stone. We have wall. And that's it for that. Let's make sure we copy the gameplay tag. Boom. Then we have add. Let's add a bunch more rows. Buildable wall door wood. That. And you can skip past this part, guys. This is just me filling out everything so it's done. My wood door. Boom. Door. Okay, yeah, this is not. I got you. So this is actually, I actually did the wrong thing, which is. There we go. It is a door frame, I think. Yeah, it's a door frame. Make sure you do the door frame for the mesh. And then we want a door wall, wood, door. That's it. Go to the next one. We want buildable wall door. Okay, gotcha. So we'll do metal. My metal door frame. Metal. Wall. That's it. Make sure we copy the gameplay tag. Boom. I'm going to do stone. So buildable or door stone. Oops. Copy that. Paste it right there. And my stone door frame. Then we have door wall stone and door. That looks like it's that. And then we can say wall. We want the windowed wall wood. So my wood window frame. We want the window wall wood and wall. And make sure we copy the tag to the row name. And then the same thing. So we want the windowed wall metal. My metal window frame. We want our windowed wall metal and wall. And don't forget to copy that. And then we just need stone. So wall, window wall, stone. We have wall, window wall, stone, and wall. And we'll copy the gameplay tag. A few more. So we just need the door. No, we already have the door. Sorry. Yeah, we just need the regular door. So, yeah, right. So we have standard door. Yeah. Oh, we need the. No, that's it. Yeah, we just need the door. So door wood. I'm going to say my wood door. My stylized wood door. Say. Oh, it looks like we didn't put that in our classes. So, yeah, we don't have the. So let's create another one for buildable door base. Create a child of that. Buildable door underscore wood. Duplicate that. Metal, duplicate that. Stone. Throw that in a doors folder. Create another folder for windows. We're going to create a child off the buildable base. Buildable window base. Create a child of that. Call it buildable window wood. Duplicate that. Metal, duplicate that. And stone. Throw all those in our Windows folder. Boom. Cool. And so now we have the door. So this is our wooden door. So let's go door, buildable door wood, door, and copy the thing. Metal. So my metal door, metal door, and door. Almost done. And so we need the stone door. So stone, nope, that's the wall. Sorry. Door stone. And my stone door, my stylized stone door. Cool. And then the door, stone, door, and don't forget to copy the tag. Last one, which is our window. So window, wood, my wood window, buildable window wood. Boom. Oops, I'm going to drag this above those two just to keep everything in order. Because I accidentally did it out of order, but there we go. Window wall, or window metal, my metal window. Window. The last one. Boom. Window. Window stone, yep. Copy that. Boom. My stone window. Window, where is it? Buildable, window stone. And yeah, already copied it. Cool. So you should have about 18 entries, and that should be about everything we need for now. And we won't touch this for a good bit. So if we X that out, that's our data table. Let's go into our blueprints folder, create a game folder. Let's create a blueprint function library. We'll call it my, building system function library. Cool. And we'll go in there. And if you followed my other series, you should be used to this process by now. We're going to create a function library, which I like to start them all with FL underscore. And we'll say get buildable data by tag. Then we will get this tag. And then we'll get the data table row. We'll drag off of get tag or the tag right here and just plug that up, connect this. And we want our buildable definition. Okay, recombine that and just drag that in. We do want a Boolean for if it was found or not for an output. And we can just say found data question mark and mark that as yes and drag that in there. Marked as pure. We can say, what was it? Found data. And this is our buildable data. And let's try to mark this. No, you can't. Okay, cool. So I think that's it. And we can actually create another one, just a helper one that's get buildable mesh by tag and do the same thing. So drag this one in, grab the tag. We'll need a context. I'm going to delete that and do context. That just happens in blueprint function libraries. And more or less, we're going to break this and return the mesh. So found data. And actually, let's do this. Let's off of found data, let's do an and off of the mesh, let's do it is valid. And then do that to make sure that no matter what, it doesn't give us something that's invalid and will cause an error. Cool. And then we can, cool. All right, where is our buildable base and our buildable base blueprint in the construction script now? Once we get our tag, get buildable mesh by tag. Context is going to be a reference to self. And if we, oops, looks like I didn't pass in the mesh. So let's go back to our blueprint function library and just drag in that mesh. Just going to straighten this up so it's easy to read. That's our mesh. Go into buildable base. And if we have found the data, then we want to set static mesh. Boom. We can drag that mesh in there, and that should set it. And my engine crashed. Let me restart it. Yeah, guys, I'm having trouble with this mesh. It keeps like failing. It keeps like crashing my game if I do this one. So I'm just going to delete it. It doesn't like that one for some reason, and I've just used our get buildable data. So get buildable data by tag and just drag that in. And it's just one other node to break it and drag the mesh in there. And it hasn't been crashing with that. And so basically now if we go into our foundation, we have our tag variable, which we can say foundation metal, foundation stone, foundation wood. And while we're at it, let's create an empty level. So new level, file, new level, basic. And then we can go into our core folder, create a folder for levels, save current level as L building testing. Cool. L underscore building testing. And now if we get our foundations, we have our wood, stone, and whatever, and there we go. And everything should be working, and it's getting the data from the data table. So real quick, I know this episode has been a little boring, but it's really just setting up the foundation for everything. So door, wood, I'm going to let's just fill out all these tags while we're at it. So we don't get tripped up later thinking we set the tags and didn't. I'm just going to run through all these blueprints and set their values. So door, wall, or oops, this is wood. So wall, door, wood. Wall, door, stone. So wall, door, stone. Wall, door, metal, doors. Oh, already did the doors. Did the door walls and foundations. This is the wall standard. So wall standard wood, wall standard stone, wall standard metal. So wall metal. Nope. Standard wall metal. Cool. Windows. Let's go wood. So window. Not the wall window, just the regular window we have. And no, I didn't. Okay, cool. I thought I put them both in under wall for a second. So we have window stone and window metal. And the last one, we have our window wall. So window, wall, window. What is this one? This one is wood. So wood. What is it? Wall. So wall, window, stone. And wall, window, metal. And if I just save all, I shouldn't have to compile all these, and I'll just exit them out. And then we should be good to go. Yeah. And so all the blueprints should be working now. When they spawn in, they will spawn in with that. Cool. When they spawn in, they'll spawn in with, with their required mesh or whatever. And let's just actually check this. Yeah, it is block all dynamic, which is what we want right now. And just before, let's go into our class settings and our buildable base and just implement our BPI buildable, which I don't remember creating a function for it. So let's just do that real quick. And this will be like when we deconstruct a buildable, this is just how we'll get the tag of what it is. So we want two functions basically, which is get buildable tag. And we're going to put an output of gameplay tag. And then we want another function for if get buildable or get sockets. Let's call it that, get sockets. And that's going to take an input of, an output of an array of primitive components. There we go. And then we will make that an array. Cool. Those are the two I can think of for now that we'll need. We may need more, and then if we go into our buildable base class settings, we've already implemented, we just needed to compile. And then we have This one, which is get buildable tag, and the get sockets, we will leave blank for now. Cool. So that's a good start to this. Let's just go into our core folder and create another folder called components and create our buildable manager component. Boom. Cool. That's going to wrap it up for this episode, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any trouble, check for a pinned comment and be sure to join our Discord server. It's super active, and odds are is you'll get some help if you're stuck with anything. Check out the Patreon if you would like to download the files. And the next episode should be coming very soon. This was just a starter episode to get everything set up to where we can really, move forward in the next one. All right, guys. Hope you guys were able to follow along, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.